Chapter 2. Manipulated. Cressida sat behind the desk in her large, elegantly designed executive office. Letting out a sigh of relief, she opened the file her father, Charleston had placed on her desk. It was a case he wanted her to personally take on. Cressida looked over the papers, horrified by what she read. Confused and infuriated, she stood and stared at the file on her desk in disbelief. How did her father expect her to defend such a person? She quickly gathered up the papers, shoved them back into the file folder, and stomped her way down to her father's office at the end of the hall. Charleston was a stern businessman and loving father. He had 3, now adult children. Jackson, his oldest son, was a neurosurgeon living in Albany, New York. Christian, his youngest, was a full-time musician and part-time mailroom clerk at the family firm. Then there was Cressida, his only daughter, whom he cherished. Charleston's wife, Harmony Davis had been placed in a psychiatric hospital 3 years earlier. "Dad, what is this about?" Cressida stormed into his office and threw the files onto his desk. Although on the phone with a client, Charleston took one look at his daughter's face and knew the conversation with his celebrity client would have to be placed on the back burner. "Yes, something just came up. I will have to call you back." "No, I promise you. Everything is going to work in our favor." "Okay, take care now." He set the receiver down and picked up the file his daughter had so dramatically thrust before him. "Cressida, I gave you this case because I thought you would be the perfect person to handle it." He spoke like the self-confident businessman that he was. "What? Are you kidding me? Dad, this is the same man Mom said broke into our home and attacked her." Cressida's shrill voice echoed across the walls of her father's office. She was furious at her father's carefree demeanor. "Pudding, your mom is not in any position to talk. She has lost her mind. You can't listen to her," Charleston replied. He made his way over to the bar to pour himself a drink. Cressida regretted the harsh words. She knew the topic of her mother always led him to a drink. "Daddy, I'm sorry. It's just that. This man is pure evil. I can't defend someone like this. Daddy, Blake Carter raped and killed over 23 young girls and boys." She went to stand behind her father. A tear rolled down her cheek as she pictured the faces of the innocent children who'd been hurt by this man. Only a fool would take this case. His guilt is obvious. Charleston set his glass back on the bar and turned to face his daughter. "Cressida, had I had another option, I wouldn't have asked you. Nobody will take this case. I would take it myself, but my workload is already overflowing. I can't afford to lose any more cases with your mother's illness. Look, honey, it truly is a done deal for Blake Carter. It's an easy case. No jury in their right mind is going to let him off." He placed his arm around his daughter's shoulder and pulled her closer to plant a kiss on her temple. "Please, for Daddy. I have no one else." Cressida crumbled under her father's embrace. "Okay, Daddy. I'll take it." She felt as if a part of her had just died. "That's my girl. Hey, we can't always have good cases. We have to sometimes defend filth. At the end of the day, all you need is a shot of rum and a piece of her, Daddy." Cressida cut him off before he could finish. Charleston let out a hearty laugh as he walked back to his desk. "Well, you know what I mean." He smiled and settled into his chair. "Dad, you're a pirate," Cressida remarked as she made her way to the door. "Hey," her father called out, holding up the file for the Blake Carter case. She walked back and hesitated a moment before snatching the file out of her father's hand. He snorted in his lame attempt at a pirate. Cressida nervously smiled. Indigestion settled in, letting her know something was wrong about this case. She looked at her watch. 5 o'clock had finally rolled around. She rushed to her office, shoved the file into her briefcase, and grabbed her coat. With a quick flick of her wrist, she locked her office door and headed out. Cressida pulled her hair out of its tight bun and shook it loose as she walked. One of her friends had set her up on a blind date. The timing was great. She needed something to distract her thoughts from this upcoming case. She made her way to the local gourmet restaurant and headed for the bar where they'd agreed to meet. All Cressida knew about Joshua Smith was a local realtor who was divorced and had 5 kids in his mid-40s. She made herself comfortable at the bar and ordered a rum and coke, thinking about the last statement her father had made only moments earlier. Occasionally checking her watch, Cressida waited and ordered another drink. She looked around at the other patrons, wondering if there'd been a mix-up. Was she in the right place? Yes, this was precisely where he'd said to wait for him. She waited another half hour, but her date never showed. Feeling lower than dirt, she ordered 3 straight shots of vodka. She quickly swallowed them down and kept demanding more, as if each one held power to make her forget about her miserable life. The bartender ended up cutting her off. Beyond drunk, Cressida was unable to get off of the bar stool. Meanwhile, Maxwell sat in the dining room, having coffee with a business associate, when he noticed Cressida at the bar. "So, are we done here? I can see a friend of mine is in trouble at the bar." He took the napkin off his lap and placed it on the table. "Yeah, sure. It was nice doing business with you," Hank Williams replied, putting his hand out for Maxwell to shake. Maxwell shook his hand, threw down some money for the meal, and stood. "I'm sorry for cutting this short, but it appears that my friend is about ready to fall off that stool. Call me later so we can finalize everything." "It was good meeting you, Hank," Maxwell said before hastily making his way over to Cressida. He reached her just as she began to slide her off the bar stool. Maxwell held her as her head rolled backward. "How much did she have to drink?" he asked the bartender. "She had 8 shots of vodka and 2 rum and cokes," he replied. "Lucky for her, it's early, and the place isn't too busy. I was able to keep track of her. Any busier, and I would have let her drink herself into oblivion." "I understand." Maxwell grabbed her things. "Cressida, it's Maxwell. I'm going to help you out, okay?" No response came from her. He picked her up and carried her out the door. On his way, he passed a short, plump, and bald, middle-aged man, standing there bewildered as he held a bouquet of flowers. May paced along the beach in front of their makeshift camp. Max had been gone for more than an hour, and she feared the worst. It had taken her some time to calm Uriel down, but before May even realized it, he'd fallen back asleep. Tears flooded May's eyes as she reminded herself to keep the faith. No matter what happened, they were all in God's hands. She stopped pacing when she heard a noise behind her. Turning around, she saw Max standing there, smiling at her. May ran to him, crying and laughing at the same time. "Max, I'm so sorry. I was wrong to make us come here. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's just go back home first thing in the morning," May rambled on as she held Max tightly. "Baby, no. I was wrong." She took a big step back and looked at him, scrunching her face in confusion. "Oh no, you're a ghost." "The Max I know wouldn't say that," May cried. Max laughed. You are an impossible woman. Now that I finally understand your point, and I agree with you, this is the thanks I get. Max, when I thought I lost you, I can't do this without you. He stepped closer to her, pulling her into his embrace. Stop it. That was a garden lizard on steroids. I have fought bigger reptiles in my sleep. Yeah, Mr. Alligator Wrestler. Where did you learn to do that? May asked. That's how I realized you might be onto something. If I hadn't seen you in danger, I don't think I would have been able to do what I just did. I learned something new about myself. That was scary. I don't want to ever go through that again. Are you okay? Is there anything I need to kiss? Max whispered as he leaned down to kiss her. Yeah, my butt for giving me a heart attack. She smiled before kissing him. Bend over, Max joked. Okay, but don't get mad. I got bit by something. May hesitated to even bring it up. Let me see. It can't be poisonous, or you would have been. Just let me see. Max didn't want to finish his initial thought. It's dark, babe. Watch the baby. I'll go wash it off in the ocean. May walked away. She could now relax, knowing that her husband was safe. When she returned, she joined Max, sitting next to the fire. Is it bad? He asked. It's fine. The salt water will kill any bacteria. It's really not that bad. May didn't tell him it was a snake bite and that she had to puncture wounds on her ankle. However, she knew it was a non-venomous snake, or she would have been dead by now. It's been one hell of a night, Max yawned. I know, and we haven't even started yet. Let's go to bed. It's only a couple hours to sunrise, and tomorrow is another long day. Max stood up and stretched before offering his hand to help May to her feet. They made themselves comfortable, sleeping on either side of their son, fearing he would wake before them and wander off to the ocean or forest. Max and May slept lightly, waking at the slightest sound or movement Uriel made. They were up and ready to hike to the campus by sunrise. They were soon hot, sticky, hungry, and exhausted. After a few hours of trudging through the forest, they came to a clearing. Just a few more yards, and they would be climbing the front steps to the college. Max and May were not alone. Many other students walked like zombies to the registration hall. Tidbits of conversation came to May's ear. She soon realized everyone had been left stranded on various locations around the island and had all had to hike their way back to campus. May spotted two other couples with young children. They argued amongst themselves as they walked towards the campus steps. May knew what that felt like. If she and Max hadn't been so exhausted by their trek, they'd most likely be arguing right now as well. Walking under the boiling heat of the sun was causing people to want to kill each other. Tempers rolled high, and patience was all but gone. Grateful that they had pre-registered, May smiled when a staff member led them to a private meeting room with other couples who also had young children with them. Max and May found a seat in the class while everyone waited for a staff member to explain what was happening. A professor entered through a side door. Everyone grew quiet as the professor called everyone's attention. Good morning, the professor greeted loudly. He was an average height man in his 50s with a slim build. He walked to the front of the room with a sure and confident stride. He cleared his throat and began to speak. First, I would like to welcome you all to King Solomon's College of Divine Wisdom. My name is Professor Adam Boyd, and I have taught at this college for over 25 years. I will be your spiritual warfare professor. This year we are trying something new. Normally, we do not allow young children at this college for safety reasons. However, the board has requested we temporarily change our policy and allow young families to attend. Our campus is not equipped with the necessary facilities for children. Changes are being made as we speak to correct this. In the meantime, I will be assigning the first mission. He looked around the room. I want all the fathers to stand. All the men hesitated but eventually stood up. The professor looked at each of them carefully, nodding his head as if speaking to himself. How many of you knew that you would be in this situation? He asked. No one raised their hand. Sometimes, God chooses the most unlikely to carry out his important missions, he stated. Okay, sit down. I know you are all tired. Everyone sat down without a word. Toddlers were getting fussy in the background, and mothers tried to comfort them. Uriel was no exception as he threw himself back into his mother's arms, no doubt frustrated and hungry. May handed him to his father as she quickly searched for toddler snacks for him. Max rocked and gently calmed his son as May finally found a box of animal crackers, Uriel's favorite snack. I will make this quick, Professor Boyd went on. We don't have co-ed dorms, so until the dorms are built, you will have to stay in separate dorms. The room echoed with groans, sighs, and cheers circled the room. Max and May looked at each other. This would be a problem. Uriel was used to sleeping in the same room with both his parents. In the middle of the night, he would only want his father to rock him back to sleep or insist on sleeping between his parents. They watched as Uriel contentedly ate his cookies. He was now happy in his own realm. I don't know how you will want to work out your schedules, taking turns and what not, but this will be a part of your second assignment from my class. Everyone began to talk amongst themselves. Yes, your first assignment was last night, and telling by the fact that you are still here, I know that I have succeeded in weeding out the weak and have found the strong ones. Over the past 2 days, 60 young families have been left stranded on the beach or in the forest, and you guys are the first to stay and stick it out. I am very proud and eagerly look forward to working with you all. Everyone was quiet, shocked by what they'd heard. Students could see that this college would test them when they least expected it. A student in the back of the room raised her hand to ask a question. The professor nodded to her. Professor, what will we do when we need to go to class? We have an on-campus childcare center. It is brand new, and we have an excellent staff, the professor answered and then turned to point to another student. Yes, you, in the back there. How long will it be before a co-ed dorm is built? When you come to class on Monday, I will be able to answer that question for you. May leaned over to Max and whispered to him, What are we going to do? Let me take him tonight. You really look tired. Besides, if he cries for me in the middle of the night, it won't be a problem. Okay, May whispered, but she felt a profound sadness pass over her. This would be the first night she'd sleep without her 2 favorite men. Already, she felt lonely and sick to her stomach. Are you okay? Max asked. Yeah, babe, I'm fine. He always had a knack for seeing right through her, and though she tried to hide her sorrow, she knew Max could read the sadness in her eyes. Nothing he could say would take that away. The professor pointed out that the 2 faculty staff members at the back of the room would guide them to their dorms. May reluctantly handed Max the baby bag, kissing her son and Max goodbye as if she would never see them again. Baby, Stop it, Max said in a soft hush. I'm just going to see the dorm and settle in. Maybe bathe him with me, and then we can meet in the cafeteria for something to eat. Okay, I'm sorry, I know. It's just hard for me. I've never spent the night apart from Uriel and you. It's going to be odd, May complained. Max leaned down and kissed her. We always have our dreams, he smiled before turning and leaving with his group. The sun was beginning to set when they decided to call it a day. Makayla was relieved to know that she could catch a month-long break after today. She was exhausted, starved, and upset that Tamarius hadn't stuck around to see the rest of her shoot. He wasn't even there when she wrapped up her last shot. Makayla thought he most likely needed a break from her. She stepped into her trailer to take off her makeup and change. Before she could lock the door behind her, there was a knock. She opened the door to see a messenger holding a note. Thank you, she said, taking the message and closing the door. While working, a call had come in from her father. The note read, Makayla, we need your help back home. The orphanage your cousin owns is in danger. Can you please call me when you get this message? Makayla quickly reached for her purse and pulled out her cell phone to call her father. No one answered, and as she was hanging up, she felt large hands slide around her waist while soft lips kissed her neck. She groaned. Is that who I think it is? She smiled and turned to face Tamarius, who was grinning from ear to ear. Oh no, it's just you, Makayla teased, pulling away from him and laughing. Wow, that was cold. I knew you had someone on the side. Who is he? I'm going to kill him, Tamarius said with feigned anger. Stop it. He's just a kid. Makayla played along while she began to pull off her bathing suit. Tamarius rushed to lock the trailer door, then turned back to Makayla. Please, always make sure the door is locked before showing everyone my gifts. He smiled, and Makayla smiled in return. He was everything she was looking for in a man. Charming, funny, romantic, and sincere. Of course, this is what also scared the crap out of her. Makayla began, stopping to sigh and scratch her head. She stood there naked and was amused by the difficulty Tamarius was having paying attention. I'm sorry about earlier. I don't know. Tamarius, I've been through a lot. I know, he said. Walking up to Makayla, he pulled her close. You better put some clothes on before we break this trailer. His smile was slow and sensual as he lifted her chin to kiss her lips. I made reservations for us at a great Polynesian restaurant on the other side of the island. Or is it because I got mad? You don't have to do that. Makayla felt her cheeks heat up and pulled away. Tamarius, you know I'm not pregnant. You don't have to freak out and marry me or nothing crazy like that. Makayla reached into her bag and pulled out the clothes she wanted to change into. Makayla, I don't care if you are or if you aren't. I just want to be with you. Can I just be with you? Makayla turned her head to look at him. She knew he had a quick temper and could see the anger and shock he now tried to hide, but she also admired his passion. Why do I always go for the big, hot-headed, hasty ones? She joked to herself. Okay, don't pop a blood vessel. All I'm saying is that I have tried in the past to get pregnant, and nothing happened. I don't want you getting your hopes up or whatever. I know I should have told you before, but things are getting serious now, Makayla said as she finished putting on her clothes. She hated thinking about the fertility problems she'd had in the past. She'd learned to not get her hopes up over a missed period or nauseated stomach. She'd fought her urge to rush to the nearest convenience store and buy out all of the pregnancy tests. "Did you ever go to a doctor?" he asked with concern. "Yeah, he told me to just lose weight. He didn't see anything wrong." She slipped on her shoes. "Then you really don't know. It may have been the other guy who was sterile or something," Tamarius said, reaching out to help with her bags. "Well, he knocked up the girl he cheated on me with," Makayla replied, fighting back her tears. "Kay, that doesn't mean anything. All it could mean is he wasn't the right guy for you." He let the bags fall to the floor and swept her into his arms for a tender hug. "Well, I'm on birth control. We don't need to be talking about this anyway. It's too soon." Makayla pulled away from his embrace and headed towards the door. Tamarius sighed. He would have to reconsider proposing to her tonight. He was afraid Makayla would run. She wasn't ready, and he could sense her fears. Stooping to once again grab her many bags, Tamarius knew he would give her all the time she needed. He was willing to wait for her. The last of the bags hooked onto a few fingers. Tamarius caught up to Makayla as the limo driver opened the car door for her. They got in and got comfortable. "I'm glad this job is over. I need a break," Makayla said, resting her head back. Tamarius leaned over to tell the driver where they were headed, but Makayla cut in. "I want to pick up something else to wear. Do I have time to take a shower?" "Yes and no. You're beautiful as you are, but we can stop on the way if you like. The shower part. I'll just try not to stand too close to the smelly chick," Tamarius said with a teasing squeeze of her shoulder. "Oh, I wasn't smelly in the trailer," Makayla laughed. "Yeah, but you didn't let me rub my scent on you, so now you stink of the cabana boy." Makayla burst out laughing. "You're so stupid." "Yeah, but you love me." He looked into her eyes. Makayla was breathless as she stared into his loving gaze. Her lips would not form the words that her heart was screaming. "Yes, yes, I do love you," she wanted to say. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked away and tried to think of something else to talk about. "So, what kind of place is it?" Tamarius chuckled to himself. "You're going to love it." Makayla looked down at her hands. "Is this real love?" she thought. "What's bothering you, love?" Tamarius asked. "Nothing. I just..." Makayla didn't know what to say. She was still overwhelmed by her emotions. She hated holding back all that she felt for Tamarius. "Don't be afraid of me. I'm not here to hurt you," Tamarius said softly. "I know that we are meant to be together." "You do, but because of what happened in the past, you're fearful. You told me that you dreamt of me, right?" Tamarius asked. Makayla looked up at him. "Yeah, you remember that." She smiled, warmed by the notion that he remembered. "How could I forget? I was blown away. I thought I was losing it before I met you. I understand where you're going, but I just don't know how to fit you in," Makayla said. Tamarius was dumbfounded and suddenly afraid to lose her. "I don't even know the right words to say to that. You mean so much to me." His words came out in a feeble mumble as he looked into her eyes. "Just let things happen naturally." Makayla was so lost in the love she saw in his eyes that she didn't even realize she'd begun to speak again. "I know you're the one for me. There is no doubt in my heart." Tamarius pulled her close. There were so many things he wanted to say to her. He couldn't find the words to express how he felt. As the limo pulled up to a shopping plaza, Makayla pulled away from him and got ready to exit the limo. Tamarius, you have no fears about us? Makayla asked. Only one, Tamarius replied while he gazed at her. What is it? That we'll walk away from what we have because of your fears. Makayla smiled as she teased him. What if I die? Not pleased by what he'd just heard, Tamarius frowned. Well, then, when it's my time, I pray that you will be the one to greet me. Promise me you will always put God first. I promise God, I will always put him first, he quickly answered. Makayla smiled at him, though she didn't yet seem to realize that her walls had begun to collapse with him. Tamarius could see a glow around her, and he began to hear some of her thoughts. He was elated by this new development. The only other time he'd been able to read her thoughts was when they'd made love. The driver opened the door, and Makayla stepped out. Standing on the curb, she waited for Tamarius. Okay, we have 1 hour. His warning implied she needed to make some quick decisions. You're coming with me, right? She asked. Only if you promise to model for me, Tamarius teased. Let's go. This will be quick. Makayla grabbed his hand and pulled him into a nearby boutique. Makayla tried on numerous dresses, finally deciding on a black silk charmeuse dress with black, high heels. Tamarius, being a typical man, found a chair to relax in while she shopped. Once she'd found everything she needed, he quickly paid for everything while Makayla dressed in the fitting room. He was breathless when she stepped out in her new dress. Oh, my goodness. You look absolutely beautiful. You're stunning. He smiled at her. Thank you. Makayla blushed and looked over at the sales associate who had helped her. Your husband took care of everything, the woman said. What? Oh, we aren't married. Makayla blushed even more. Tamarius, you didn't have to. I got it. Does it really matter who pays? We are both fine, and I will not let money be an issue in our relationship. Just let me be a gentleman, please. He walked over to her and extended his arm. Now come on before it's too late. Before Makayla could slip her hand under his forearm, her cell phone rang. She quickly answered the phone and heard her father's voice. Daddy. Hello, baby. How are you doing? Her father asked in Chinese. I'm good. Just doing some shopping before dinner with Tamarius. Her cheeks were suddenly hot with blush again. Her father always made her feel like she was 5 years old, and she hated to admit how she loved it. How's my favorite daughter? Farley asked. Daddy, I'm your only daughter, remember? She smiled as she played along with the line of questioning her father never seemed to tire of. How's Trinidad? With Coretta at my side, Trinidad is always worth having left China for. And how is Linley? Her aunt now lived in the Martinez mansion, leaving Makayla little opportunity to see her. Like usual, her granddaughter, May, is out at the island, which should make her happy. How nice. So, Tamarius is with you. Right here, put him on the phone and let me say hi, her father ordered. Makayla smiled at Tamarius and shrugged. She handed him the phone and inched closer to him to listen to the conversation. Tamarius seemed suddenly nervous as he took the phone. Good evening, Mr. Lee. Hello, son. Things going good? Yes, sir. We're doing good. I took Makayla to meet my cousins. They fell in love with her, and I think they are plotting to steal her from me. Hold on to her, Fra said with a hearty laugh. Well, you take good care of her. She is my one and only. Oh, I am, and I will, Tamarius reassured him, his head bobbing in a fervent nod. Good. I'm sure she's in good hands. Well, nice talking to you, Tamarius. I will see you soon. Now pass me, my daughter, again. Okay. Nice talking to you, too. He handed the phone back to Makayla. Kay. Far said. Listen, the orphanage your cousin Tia runs is having some problems. What problems? Far's loud exhale and inhale told Makayla of the stress he was under. What happened, Pops? Look, the other day, Tia came by to see me, and she was real shook up. She told me the children were waking up with scratches and bruises on their skin. Oh, my goodness, Daddy. Makayla headed for the front door. Tamarius stepped ahead of her and opened the door for her, following closely behind as she walked out. He looked at Makayla, who'd stopped and stood next to a large cement column as she continued to speak with her father. He could tell by the heavy slope of her shoulders and the tight clenching of her fist that the call was very serious. He waited patiently. The conversation ended. When she walked up to him and gently wrapped her arms around his waist, he welcomed her into his arms as she rested her head on his chest. He offered her a gentle hug and planted a kiss on top of her head. Something bad must have happened. You really come to me. He forced a smile. Makayla looked up at him. Not true. Not important. What happened? What did your father say? Remember my cousin Tia? Makayla began. Yeah, the one who takes care of those kids in St. James. She got hurt pretty bad. She just got out of the hospital. The doctors couldn't do anything for her. She's in some kind of catatonic state and… Tamarius was speechless. He gently pushed Makayla back to look into her eyes. She was crying as she continued to speak. My dad said the only word that came out of her mouth was the name of a demon. What? What's the name? Tamarius asked, trying to control the sudden rage he felt building up inside. I don't say the name. Just tell me what his job is. Tamarius knew that many demons' names should not be repeated. He is a major one sent to seek, destroy, and kill God's chosen children. Tamarius, I have to go back home. Those children are in danger. It's only a matter of time before he finds the one he is looking for. In the meantime, he will be trying to reap their souls. Immediately, Tamarius pulled out his cell phone, called his pilot without another word. He arranged for them to leave soon. He pulled Makayla into his embrace. Feeling her hands around him seemed to calm him down as he whispered to her, everything is going to be all right. We can do this together. Maxwell softly laid a passed-out Cressida on his royal king-size bed. Being worried about her, he knew sleep would not come to his eyes if she were out of his sight. Maxwell slowly slipped her shoes off and pulled the sheets over her. He then stood up and walked over to the sofa lounge chair he had in the corner of his room. Looking over at the sofa chair, Maxwell knew his slender, 6'4" frame would not fit comfortably on that couch. He shook his head and complained, it's going to be a very long night. He pulled off his jacket and kicked off his shoes before heading to the shower. Cressida slept fitfully in the strange bed. She kicked the sheets off and swung her arms wildly into the air as though fighting off some unseen enemy. She felt the tug and tear of her skin as hideous creatures pulled and grabbed at her from every direction, causing her body to twist and turn from the intense pain. In the background, she could hear her name being called repeatedly by a voice that could only be described as demonic. It droned on and on in a register so low she could feel its vibration. Cressida could smell the putrid odor of rotting flesh, and she coughed and gasped for air as a demon pulled her by her hair and yelled, "You're mine." Soaked in sweat and screaming at the top of her lungs, Cressida sat up. Her screams pierced through the gentle gurgling of water and startled Maxwell. Naked and dripping, he jumped out of the shower, grabbed a towel, and quickly wrapped it around his waist as he ran out to the bed. He knelt beside her as she sat erect, her hands balled into tight fists while she continued to hysterically scream. "Cressida!" he shouted. He took hold of her arms and shook her. "Cressida!" Her screams diminished until they were just woeful whimpers. Cressida's eyes flew open, and she broke down in tears. Maxwell held her against his wet skin. "It's all right. You're all right, Cressida. You've had a bad dream, but it's all over now. You're safe." Cressida gained control of herself and pulled away from him. "Maxwell, what am I doing here?" she asked, looking around the room. "Yeah, what is going on? I literally caught you falling off a bar stool." "Damn, I'm sorry. It's so unprofessional of me. I should go," Cressida said as she started to throw the sheets back. "No, you are in no condition to drive, and you still haven't answered my question." Cressida looked at Maxwell as if she'd never seen him before. His soft curly hair, beautiful grey eyes, and charismatic smile enticed her. "Maybe I'm still drunk," she thought as flashes of him kissing her ran through her mind. "Maxwell, it's a long story, and I don't want to waste your time. I will be okay." He leaned back against the headboard as he sat next to her. "Do you remember back in the days when we used to be friends? When your brother went off to med school, he asked me to watch over his baby sister." "He did not," Cressida argued. "Yeah, he did. You mean a lot to him. I know he would have been upset if he'd seen you earlier today." Cressida bowed her head, feeling shameful for having lost her grip. "I don't know what happened to me. Just stress, I guess," she mumbled. "That scream was not stress, Cressida. Something is wrong. Talk to me. I can help you. You've always been my friend first, and if I have to lose you as a lawyer to help you, I will." Cressida looked up at him and smiled. "Okay, but you need to put some clothes on before something happens. I'm a drunk, single woman. You do the math." "Wow, you never made me feel like the victim before," Maxwell said with a teasing smile. He stood up. "Of course, I wouldn't mind if you did." He curled his lips into the most deliciously wicked smile. Cressida's eyes lit up with an erotic flame as she brought her hands to her heated cheeks. "You better get out of here and put some clothes on." She laughed and threw a pillow at him. A chill ran down her spine as she watched his muscles flex and contract as he blocked the pillow. "Fine, fine." He jumped off the bed, walked into his closet, and threw on pajama bottoms. He was drying his hair when he walked out of his closet and saw Cressida sitting up and preparing to put her shoes on. He walked to the bedroom door with an easy and casual stride and locked it. "What is your problem today?" Cressida asked with a nervous laugh. "For some reason, I don't want you to go, at least not until you tell me what is happening with you." "Is this what you call dressed?" Cressida pointed to his pajama pants. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Look, I don't know what you want from me, but I have a sickness with you Martinez men, and right now, I'm on the 12-step program to rid myself of the disease. You are not helping. I'm a disease now." Maxwell laughed. "All of you are. Look at May and Makayla. Those poachicks need to be put in rehab and brought back to reality. No man can love any woman like that. It's just not in them. I will not be another one of the Martinez's victims. Thank you very much. Cressida got to her feet and headed for the door. Maxwell stood in front of the door with his hand on the doorknob. Look, if you want to leave, I will have the limo take you home. You don't like me, and I understand that. I know you had a thing for my brother, and I'm not as dashing as he is, whatever. But you really need to tell me why I found you so drunk tonight. Talking about the 12 steps, I know all about it. If you're not careful, Cressida, you could lose everything you've worked so hard for. Your father didn't make it easy for you to reach your position. Don't throw away your dream. Every word he said rang true and captured her attention. She knew he was right. My father, she mumbled and walked back to the bed to sit down. She reflected on their conversation earlier that day. She felt manipulated by her father and knew it was a mistake, agreeing to take the Blake Carter case. Maxwell came to sit beside her. Your father. Did he do something? He forced me to take this case for a client. I just can't bear to even think about it. You would think my father would know better than to have me take this case. He cares more about his company and making money than he does about how I feel. You don't have to take a case that makes you feel uncomfortable. Cressida shook her head. I know, but he made me feel like I had to. It broke my heart today. I know all about manipulation. I'm a lawyer, but when someone you love and respect uses that kind of tactic on you, well, I just wasn't prepared for the emotional blow I received. I found myself agreeing to what he wanted. I just wanted to get out of there, away from him and his pirate attitude. Pirate? She waved her hand dismissively. His idea of a joke. What is the case about? Maxwell leaned in closer, eager to show his concern for her situation. Do you remember the guy who raped and killed those children? Cressida began gently weeping. Maxwell wrapped his arm around her. Yes, I have to defend him. He's claiming insanity and saying he didn't do it. She cried. Maxwell rubbed her back as she spoke. That man is not insane. He's just evil, he spat. I know, and I just can't do it. Maxwell, what am I going to do? Cressida sat up straight and looked at him. Maxwell looked into her eyes. Her pupils began to dilate. He didn't realize when they began to kiss. Cressida slowly ran her nails against his bare skin. Chills ran up his spine and across his body as he reached for her, pulling her closer, pulling her shirt out of her skirt, and ripping off the buttons. They laughed as Cressida took off her shirt and threw it on the floor. Are you sure you want to do this? Maxwell whispered. I don't want to think about it right now. Whatever happens, happens, she whispered back. Maxwell smiled as he kissed her again, sliding off the remainder of their clothing. He paused for a moment as he gently glided his hands along the sides of her breasts to her thighs. Perfect, he whispered. You don't have to lie. Maxwell gazed at her. I don't have to lie. Deep down, I've always liked you. I just assumed I wasn't your type. I would never have guessed that you liked me. You always seemed so caught up in your... I know. I kind of shut myself down for a while. Maxwell laid back on the bed. Cressida leaned over him and ran her fingers through his hair as she kissed him softly. Running her fingers over his chest and below his belly button, she lightly glided her nails across his waist. Overwhelmed with passion, Maxwell pushed her back onto the bed and made love to her.